Welcome to the Do It All Dad Year podcast, dad friendly entertainment for you and me. Controlling our kids through comedy can make our kids great again. And this is episode 35 in my kids' lifeless room, which is an homage to my beautiful children, Matilda, Sing, and Rose, and Art Show USA, otherwise known as Arthur Morrison Kornbluth, who are at the grandparents right now in Delaware. But we will get to that poem homage later in my kids' lifeless room, which is, of course, an homage to the song In My Room by the Beach Boys, created by the creative genius Brian Wilson, who I met in LA, by the way, at this fancy Starbucks off of Laurel Canyon not too long ago. Big hulking guy. It was obviously him. He didn't look like he had much going on upstairs. What I mean by that is that, you always had, you were familiar with the aura of Brian Wilson. Everyone knew that he wanted to create this masterpiece, Smile, which was after Pet Sounds, but it took him forever, similar to like Dr. Dre's Detox album, which never came out. But Smile eventually did come out 20 years later, which was awesome. Although I strongly recommend Lucky Old Son before you purchase Smile, which is fantastic. And because in that album, you have some beautiful music where Brian Wilson speaks in Spanish. And after you watch the movie based on Brian Wilson with Paul Dano and John Cusack being the horrific part of that film, Paul Dano being great. And I never thought that I'd be giving more cool man props to Paul Dano over John Cusack, but, stranger things have happened. So the point being is, in that movie, you find out that Brian Wilson had this very strong relationship with his Mexican maid. And I don't want to give away the film or anything, but she does play a pivotal role in him ultimately being able to break free from his manager's grasp, who got Brian Wilson all pilled up and drugged out in the first place. So when I met Brian Wilson in Laurel Canyon at the Starbucks, this is one of my infamous in-between bouts of employment. I was trying to write some crappy screenplay. I don't even know what it was about. I was basically just recycling events from my life. In particular, I was talking about the summer wind. Katie King, who I met in Cape Cod some time ago. This is when I was 20, so we're talking summer of 99. It wasn't summer of 99. It was actually summer of 96. And this is a true story. First time I ever talked to God, I remember like it was yesterday. I'm in Chatham, I'm in Cape Cod, I'm staring at the beach, and I said, God. Growing up, I had these romantic visions of having girlfriends where we could hold hands and go to the amusement park at White Playland, and go on the Dragon Coaster together and share cotton candy. And it's been some time since high school. Already completed my sophomore year in college. Throw me a bone. And then one day, I'm on this deck in Chatham, living with these 5 other people. We had free rent at that point, before we were all going to move into a place together. And out of nowhere, this luminous, gorgeous, blonde, angelic angel, if there was ever divine intervention, this was it, emerges. And I was strumming the acoustic guitar. My friend Sam at the time he was teaching me a couple of chords. I don't know what they were. I'm staring at that acoustic guitar right now. My 17-month-old son Samuel already makes that guitar sound better than I do, which proves that some people just have natural gifts in certain departments, others don't. And my hair was looking pretty cool back then. My friends used to bust my balls saying they used to call me the original Super Jew Jesus, and so I was wearing a nice white Gap T-shirt, my beige khaki shorts, and I had the guitar, and there was Katie. She basically floated into my aura, and I remember we got together probably, I'd say 2 nights later. And whenever I drink, and this happened with my wife too, it's subconscious. It's never been a conscious move. But if I am very attracted to the girl, I end up, touching their hands, in an affectionate way, not in a, grubby, Ben Roethlisberger, what, give me your puntang now. I'm gonna impose my manhood on you after drinking Jaeger bombs, sort of way. And I remember everyone giving these looks of disgust, like, who does this big-headed Jew think he is, going after this grand dame debutante that makes Reese Witherspoon look like the biggest chinny chin chin butterface that's ever been born south of the Mason-Dixon line. So 36D breasts, perfect body, but more importantly, she was just the sweetest, and she was super smart. She graduated Duke in 3 years, double major. So we had a summer romance. Katie King will always be my summer wind. So, and when I drove cross country before I spent my last semester in college in Los Angeles, living in the San Fernando Valley, while interning for the House of Representatives, which is actually a talent agency in LA. And I surprised her driving cross country. I had her address still in my address book, and I had no intention of visiting her. There was a snowstorm. We did a different route, and I remember we had this passion embrace. So her parents were loaded. Her father was a big time doctor in like the Chapel Hill area. Mom was stockbroker, and the mom was Miss South Carolina, which was crazy. So there's a really nice guest house. So we stayed there. They're like, listen, stay here. I'm like, okay, fine. And we had this, and I remember we were at the bar that night, and I was being, my chatty self, and she goes, "You haven't changed. Like, you're still the, sweet, talkative guy I knew." That wasn't what she had to say. I'm completely brutalizing the actual dialogue, but the point being is that that, according to her, that sweet best version of me had not changed too much, and she was able to see it, firsthand again. And I had no intention of hooking up with that night, but we had this kiss. When we went back to her place, it was immediately boner elevating. It was a boner elevating kiss instantaneously. And she tasted fantastic. And I wanted to swallow her whole on the spot. And it was amazing. And then I called her in LA. And I was just calling her to, like, I don't know why I was calling her. Obviously I wasn't over her, but it was done. She had moved on. 10 times with probably 10 million other guys after me. However, when I did surprise her, she did say, "It's so funny that you're here. I was just looking at some old pictures of us." And I don't know if that was true or not, but it's still nice to know. But I remember I thanked her. I said, "Katie, I want to thank you for," I told her I was going to LA, and I could be more excited about it. Spent my last semester of school out there, and I thanked her for setting off the spark. What I mean by that is that before that, folks, I never realized. So I remember this is the best compliment I ever got back then. Katie King, she goes, I never knew anyone could make me so happy. I never knew anyone could make me so happy." And at that point, I had no idea that I possessed that capacity either. So thank you, Katie King, for providing me with the best compliment ever at that point in my life. And also, you were definitely, very prophetic, because I think about my 3 kids right now, and everyone's always commenting on how excessively happy my youngest is, Samuel Teddy Kornbluth. So I'd like to pat myself on the shoulder for recognizing your words of wisdom as far as my capacity to give unbridled joy, because I've spent more time with my baby boy Samuel than I have with my other 2 kids in terms of like their initial first 2 years on this earth. And he's definitely been the extremely giddy beneficiary of Daddy's good vibrations. So, thank you, Katie King. You were the best summer one ever. It was the best summer ever. And I love you forever for giving me that lesson. Because prior to that, self-esteem wasn't necessarily going to the roof. Certainly didn't have any grand plans to be a killer on the stand-up comedy stage. Didn't think I could be a staff writer for Family Guy. Certainly didn't think that I could be a major voice in talk radio within the podcast sphere here in America. And only send my podcast to President Donald Trump and Howard Stern and the who are like the most like dominant, larger than life New York characters in my lifetime. So thank you, Katie K, for everything you gave me as far as the confidence, the belief in me, and for just and for being there when you were that time of my life where I needed a summer wind to lift my spirits, make my heart lighter, and to prove to me that I had this amazing capacity to love. I knew that I had a lot of love to give, and I'm so glad that I was able to love you in that way. And I'm assuming you're kicking ass in whatever you're doing right now because you always were. So love you forever, babe. But don't worry, my wife doesn't listen to this podcast, and it's not like I'm trying to pursue you or trying to rekindle something. But what I've realized so far, Katie, in this podcast is that I tend to have a lot of conversations with people from my past out of the blue when I go off script, and I think it'd be a beautiful thing. So thanks again. But now we're going to get back to some jokes, people, okay? So here we go. I mentioned not too long ago that I had skin cancer. I had skin cancer removed from my finger. So here are some skin cancer jokes. This is me giving my wife grief on the morning of my skin cancer removal surgery because I wanted to see how much she'd make that morning because that day I wanted to figure out if she was going to make that day more about her than me. This is the morning of my skin cancer removal surgery. So I was feeling particularly feisty. So this is one thing that I said that morning to be the personification of feistiness to my wife. Here we go. This is what I said to my wife. Don't cut Arthur's bangs again. He looks like a gay friar on a kale smoothie diet. So I had an interview planned for today with this guy, Aaron Hawkins. He's a police captain, and he wrote a book called $1 Million Influence, head of a SWAT team. He loved me. We had amazing phone conversations, but then he listened to a couple of podcasts, and he had to decline our interview at the last minute because he's got one daughter, and the daughter is very enamored with him, as she should be. But the daughter, he thinks it's very cool that, dad does a podcast and everything, blah, blah, blah. And she listens to all of them, as well as he hosts his own podcast, but, he's also a guest on many podcasts, and she listens to all of them. So here are a couple of my podcasts, and Aaron declined. So this is my funny, made-up retort to my police captain guest that I was going to book on this show that I originally was going to call Defending Your Family Deficiencies. So here we go. So like I said, I just received an interview decline for the Do It All Day Your podcast from this guy, Aaron Hawkins, who's a real mention. Yeah, he sent a really nice note, so yeah, I can't be mad at him. But here we go. He said, Michael, I have to decline. Your monologues/jokes aren't appropriate for my daughter and her friends to hear. So this is my funny response that I never said. But if I don't teach our kids that Hillary Hammertime Cankles is an unhuggable cunt, who will? Told you it was worth it. I didn't tell you that, but obviously it was. So these are substitute words for stay-at-home dads. I read some old article from Atlantic magazine. This guy was saying, I think we should come up with a more fitting, appropriate word for stay-at-home dads. So this is my stab at it. Here we go. Substitute words for stay-at-home dads. House bitch, deplorable dad, and shemale stain of shame. Hey now. So this is a proof of so Alexa, I mentioned Alexa before. Alexa is the virtual assistant for Amazon, okay? So this is proof of Alexa's dark sense of humor, okay? I say, hey Alexa, play Warren Zevon, and she plays Knocking on Heaven's Door 45 minutes before my skin cancer removal surgery. I love that joke. So I'm watching Wyatt Earp. I hadn't watched the movie in ages. And with Kevin Costner, there was Tombstone, which was the more commercially successful one. Basically the same story and much shorter. But I'm still really enjoying Wyatt Earp. Getting into westerns again. And who am I kidding? I never really was into westerns. I mean, I loved Young Guns as a kid, but that was basically it. So, but I love the focus on family and like the American frontier. Anyway, not trying to bore you to death with my reason for giving a shit about westerns, but so I got a real kick out of this. So I'm watching Wyatt Earp with my son because, like I said, this episode is called "In My Kid's Lifeless Room," and I'm just hanging out with my son Samuel. And it is so special, ladies and gentlemen, where you're able to just chill with your child and watch a movie and have him like do his own thing. But the kids who just like sit still and watch with you, it's the best thing ever. Knowing that they're being fuss free and they love bonding with dad and it's like they could pick up on. I'm not saying it's like the most momentous thing in the world, but simple pleasures make the heart sing. So here we go. So we're watching Wyatt Earp on HBO. Okay, on my parent HBO Go app because I'm a degenerate Jew that at 42 has to depend on my parents to watch HBO. Okay, so here we go. So this is the scene where Wyatt Earp's dad, played by Gene Hackman, who's great in this movie. He always exudes great gravitas, ex-Marine, who wrote some novels. He was a big Ernest Hemingway fan. Anyway, obviously he's great in Hoosiers and Royal Tenenbaums. But here we go. So Wyatt Earp's dad is played by Gene Hackman. So there's one scene, Wyatt Earp's dad, and understand, I'm watching this movie with my son Samuel at night. And Wyatt Earp's dad says, if a man can't be depended on to be steady, if a man can't be depended on to be steady, there's no use in keeping him around. And my made-up comedic response from the unemployed comedian / father of three, that being me, is this. We're watching the movie with my son. Ignore the movie, Samuel. I'll shoot off some resumes high noon tomorrow, kid. Ha! Gotta stop laughing at my jokes. So, again, this is episode 35, In My Kid's Lifeless Room. Again, Matilda and Arthur, I am a father of three, but Matilda and Arthur at their grandparents' place, what they call Baba Camp, for the past week, and I was tidying up in the room, and I felt inspired to write this. So here we go. It's got some love on WordPress in the Do It All Dead Year blog. Let's do that again. In my kid's lifeless room. Here we go. Without brother and sister in it, it feels bare, stripped of all imaginary play talk to fill the air. Matilda, not playing honey in there, with Arthur feels incomplete, like their beds, normally made, or the room remaining neat. Cloud chair jumping is put on hold. Without them, the room is static, empty and old. No more Arthur saying, Dad, get out of my room. I'm grown up now, so zoom. Matilda isn't around to feel up Dad's beard before she goes to sleep. Like Kurt Russell's hair, her emotive, oohing and eyeing to this runs quite deep. I see Arthur in his bed, without a worry wrinkle in sight, looking extra angelic after I tuck him already asleep at night. Matilda, now known as 10 in 3 years, will soon outgrow her bunk, or break it from scaling her ladder with such forceful funk. My lifeless kid's room longs to reunite with my two precious children who give it such beautiful light. That last line always gets me inside. So Kanye West was on Jimmy Kimmel last night, and Jimmy Kimmel, being the daring provocateur that he is, asked Kanye West if President Trump cared about black people. Now, for you Millennial Mouseketeers that had your head under a rock, Kanye West, after Katrina, had made a comment saying it's obvious that, President Bush doesn't care about black people, right? So this is the big curveball that Jimmy Kimmel was throwing Kanye West's way. And I think everyone knows at this point that, Kanye West has been sporting the Make America Great hat, and he's been very active on Twitter, talking about how President Obama, did nothing for the black community, for 8 years as president. And, Kanye West has made it very clear, saying, I don't want to be controlled by the, leftist, hysterical, mob. I don't want to be like bullied into, endorsing any particular candidate. So, which I respect. And, he said it took him like a year and a half to, to grow the balls to like articulate, why he took so long to, make a hardcore stance. Nonetheless, Kanye West had a golden opportunity last night to truly articulate another reason besides him supporting the agenda of our president. Outside of saying, I don't want to be bullied. It's like, we get it. Like, you wore pink polos in Chicago and people made fun of you for it. It's like, and you're like 2'2", so we get it that you don't like to be bullied, Kanye, okay? So I thought that response was really not that sophisticated and reeked of small cojones ballery. So that's what happened last night on Jimmy Kimmel, because when Jimmy Kimmel asked him point blank, Kanye West, do you care about do you think President Trump cares about black people? He just remained silent. Like, he didn't give an immediate response. You could say he froze, or you could say he was trying to act like deep in thought, act like this, supremely creative artist, and maybe he was trying to act above it. But, my interpretation was, when he didn't respond to that question, which to me is a freaking softball, does President Trump, care about, black people? Where, as far as I'm concerned, he's the best, President Trump is the best friend the black community has ever had, in the Oval Office. I mean, black unemployment is at an all-time low last time I checked. He did dedicate almost like 15 minutes speech when he got inaugurated to revitalizing the urban cities. He pardoned Jack Johnson. I mean, I can go on and on, but anyway, here we go. So my interpretation was based on last night with Kanye West completely freezing to this softball question by Jimmy Kimmel, which was very divisive, and he's a race conspiracy theory peddler, but that's Jimmy Kimmel. It's nice to know that I used to respect him, but so I just saw a portion of this on the internet. I don't watch Jimmy Kimmel show, but I'm thinking to myself, good to know Kanye West hasn't lost his ability to improvise on the spot. And I'm thinking, if Kanye West had real balls on the Jimmy Kimmel show, his response would have been this. After Jimmy asked, does President Trump hate black people? Or does President Trump love black people? And Kanye West would respond, hell yeah, Jimmy! President Trump loves black people. He loves American black people. It's Obama who hates American blacks. But he hates the American Jew more. Trump is Hitler. I love hearing the resistors say that, Jimmy. Trump is Hitler. And what? Inglourious Bastards 2? Obama's the one who loves Hitler. Obama wishes he was that organized. Mass extermination of all his nosy Lower East Side critics, like Michael Savage, would be a gas. Michael Savage is a very prominent conservative talk show radio host. I consider him more of an independent. That's how he identifies himself. But he's lumped into like the right. He's banned from England for no apparent reason. And I also, from what I understand, Michael Savage, he wrote a book about the Chinese, how all of our, like, he was going to write a book and like no major publisher would actually publish it. And it was about it's essentially about the Chinese takeover of Silicon Valley and how they own all of our debt. And it was just too hardcore, too much truth for the American public to handle. And apparently, from what I understand from Alex Jones, call him a nut job, I don't really care. I'm not making any money off of, discussing whatever from Alex Jones. But Alex Jones said that, this purge, Alex Jones, his show InfoWars was banned from Apple, Spotify, Facebook, Periscope, everybody. And according to Alex Jones, it was a coordinated purge. And the reason why, especially from Apple, and the reason why is apparently there was this huge meeting, the Silicon Valley meeting, and Obama was there and Valerie Jarrett. who still lives with Obama, which is beyond creepy. That's like she's like his Arabian horse whisperer, right? She's half Arabian, half African American. Anyway, so this is the point. So they had this big meeting. Everyone's there. Cisco, Oracle, Apple, all the biggies, right? And this is after Donald Trump got elected. So I don't really think it takes like a huge jump in faith to recognize the fact that they all got together to figure out like how they were going to prevent Donald Trump from having a successful presidency and from being reelected. And right now, it was obvious that social media was, the alternative media, whatever you want to call it, it's the truth equalizer. And when you do have the mainstream media, that really does, like Roger Stone says, have the stranglehold on the so-called narrative that, Trump was able to still become president in spite of that. And now you have like the midterm elections coming up, and everyone's freaking out because this America First agenda is working out well. Trump kicks the shit out of ISIS. We denuclearized North Korea. Economy's roaring. I mean, these are all very positive things. And there haven't been like these massive, rampant suicide, radical Islamic attacks that seem to happen basically every other freaking day. More than only like one summer ago when Obama was president. What happened in Orlando. It all seems like very recent. But so anyway, so it's obvious that the resistors, the left, that they're in complete tense mode, and their attitude is, well, so we obviously control the media in terms of the main networks, but we're gonna take over social media too, and we're gonna silence any voice that is pro-American in the sense that any voice that's going to celebrate the accomplishments and great momentum, that we have as a nation. It disgusts me that I don't want to have to talk about this, guys. I did not start this podcast to talk politics. We're more than a year and a half into this presidency. A year and a half. I'm doing this on a Friday night at 10 o'clock. Right? All my kids are away right now. All three. I got the house to myself. And I'm talking to the internet about widespread, massive coordinated attacks to delegitimize, and get a duly elected president impeached for nothing. Fake Russian collusion, financed by the FBI. I mean, it's bullshit everywhere. And Obama is behind all of it. Setting up his office, his shadow office, like right down the street from the White House, while his so-called legacy is being dismantled. So I love this joke. Obama claiming credit for this current economy is like Nino Brown claiming credit for getting Pookie off the crack pipe and welfare. So I don't want to be talking about the FBI and the CIA and social media and Hillary Hammertime Cankles and San Francisco and Nancy Pelosi, Denture Breath Pelosi, Debbie Wolfface Wasserman Schultz. They're all so corrupt. I don't understand how my parents don't see this. They encourage hate and violence against Trump supporters. Antifa, how are they not identified as a terrorist organization? It makes no sense to me. I don't get it. Why does everyone think Obama was so great? The economy was brutal. I would know. I was a headhunter. I was on like the ground floor. But I'm going to get back to some jokes here. But moving forward, and I want to make this very clear, I do not want to talk about... I mean, the thing is, I got to talk about this. Joe Rogan's not talking about it. He talked about it. His own cavalier is like, oh yeah, well, Facebook never really saw the movie, and I don't really know. Zuckerberg's like a scumbag. This stole his idea, and what platforms is Alex Jones? He platforms? He still has his website, so everything's okay. No, it's not okay. It's blatantly not okay. These are all lies. He doesn't perpetuate hate speech. You got Farrakhan on saying Jew this, Jew that, Jews are devil, attack the police. Jews are responsible for getting black people hooked on weed so they can control them, do mind control. Are you kidding me? He's on Facebook. The bias is just blatantly skewed towards what? I mean, I don't get it. What? So is Zuckerberg just like the biggest self-hating Jew of all time? Does George Soros truly own him? I mean, like, what other conclusion can you draw? And George Soros, who Joe Rogan downplays, did collaborate. He's a Nazi collaborator. He rounded up Jews. This guy was financing Antifa and all his resistance. So, I got to talk about it to some degree. You know, Roger Stone's kicked off Twitter forever, all because, you know, he made fun of Don Lemon, called him dumb, whoop-de-doo. Jack Tapper, that putz, hurt his feelings. Who cares? He's gone, banned for life. You know, again, I talked this before. So you don't want to get kicked off Twitter? Okay, don't gain a significant following, and then don't make fun. Don't go after the media machine. Don't be critical of radical Islam. And don't make fun of any minority or any person of color, regardless of whether they deserve it or not, because you're just going to get kicked off and they're going to call it hate speech. And that's the society we live in. So, and Trump is changing all that. And I just don't understand why these fake, well-meaning big tech titans, I just don't understand how they're able to get away with this veneer of doing what's best for the American public when they're obviously controlled by the Chinese. I mean, what other theory can you develop at this point? Knowing that in China, that, you know, obviously they have, massive censorship. I'd be shot to death that I do the shit I talk in this show. We all know, you know, what they do to Tibetan monks. I mean, we're like peace personified. And Apple, this is true. I learned this from the Alex Jones show. You know, dwell on this one tonight. That China threatened, because, you know, right now, you know, Trump, he's got like the trade wars. They're calling it the trade war, but you know, he wants to create fair trade deals with China, and China, as a result, is saying, "Hey, listen, so we're going to shut down all of the Apple factories if things don't change." So what do? So you have an Apple. Obviously, they're just money-grubbing whores. They had those tax shelters in Ireland forever. Thank God, you know, Trump made it possible where they started repaying a lion's share of that. And I know that they've opened up more manufacturing facilities here. But obviously, you know, they could do it in the cheap in China with those jump death nets. And China's playing hardball, saying, well, we're going to cancel all this, you know, billions of revenue that contribute to you being this $1 trillion empire if you don't play ball and censor the people that got Donald Trump elected in the first place, which we don't like because it's costing us money. And we're communists, and we like to, and we've killed hundreds of millions of people that step out of line, and that's that. So I'm done talking about this. I'm boring myself, but yeah, the more I learn, the angrier and more infuriated I get, and I understand. I'm just glad that President Trump is president because I know that he'll take care of business, and it's blatantly obvious who President Barack Obama was aligned with, and it was obvious that he was selling out this country to the Chinese overlords, and Silicon Valley was walking lock and step, so they could just make as much money as possible, but act like, you know, they actually care about bringing this country together when they're really just a bunch of elitist scumbags that want to take away our freedom of speech, which is our most cherished possession. So fuck Silicon Valley, fuck big tech, and thank God Donald Trump is president. So I love Trump in particular fucking with LeBron more than Dice saying Trump stole his act. Meanwhile, his boy, the so-called Great Biracial Hope, delivered less empowered good for urban black neighborhoods than gastropubs pushing Michelle's arugula grilled cheese sandwiches. So this is an act out in LeBron James, the King's Mansion in Bel Air, Obama calls. Obama. Hello, King. This is LeBron. What up, Big O? This is Obama. Free is the key word, King. Provide free college. Give back. You can afford it. This is LeBron. Your Netflix paper is chump change now, player? So this is my mom. Ex-cons are getting jobs now. She doesn't mention the fact that it's an offshoot of, this Trump economy and the optimism and the widespread national pride that's permeating our society again. She obviously wouldn't get credit there, but that's okay. I still love her. So it was my mom. Ex-cons are getting jobs now. So why are you struggling with getting job interviews again? And this is the unemployed comedian / father 3. That's me. To debunk the theory of being the perpetual hooked up beneficiary of white privilege. This is my daughter. Daddy, how many zeros are in 1 trillion? We were talking about Apple. They're worth 1 trillion now. This is my daughter. Daddy, how many zeros are in 1 trillion? Do you really have to Google that? Are you financially illiterate? Is that why you call yourself a degenerate Jew all the time? Dada? I've said it once, folks, and I'll say it again. Funnier dad, happier baby. And I'm an active, involved stay-at-home dad who does stand-up comedy routines whenever I go out with my baby boys together, which is often. So my kid is constantly smiling, like he's mainlining Uncut E. It's my daughter. There's this lake that's nearby here in North Salem. I did not know it was private. Well, no, let me rephrase that. I knew it's private, but I didn't know you had to live in that particular lake section. We found out it was private. Not the end of the world. So, and I told my daughter the story where I used to live in the Oakwood Apartments in Burbank, and I used to crash the pool there, and they had a security guy, and I would hold up my New York license, not even look at the guy, act like I owned the place, and usually they would let me right in. And but one time, the security guy addressed me, and I looked at him and I said, "I'm Ashton Kutcher. I live here," and he let me right through. True story. Anyway, so my point here, in the do-it-all dad sense, was that it's fun to crash a private establishment once in a while. It's not the end of the world. It's not like we were vandalized or anything like that. And we ended up running into her good friend Shannon, and her father was there, who's a machinist and a mechanic. Did my best to show an interest in what he does. I am, I just, when he got to the nitty gritty, it kind of lost me. But so that's how I found out there's a private club. So then I get into an entire conversation with my daughter about what's a private club, right? So this is my conversation with my daughter. Daddy, what's a private club? And I tell her, a private club. A private club is for either stuck-up Gentiles or fancy pants Jews obsessed with exclusionary payback. I mentioned before about learning at the doctor's office. Well, I mentioned that I had my skin cancer removal surgery. So this is me at the doctor's office, okay? And this is the doctor. The day of my skin cancer removal surgery. And the doctor says, so there's a possibility your skin cancer is just a wart. And I reply, so in other words, I have fake news skin cancer? And what's up with the acne breakout, doc? Found it very ironic. My skin doctor had an awful case of acne. I mean, he was Russian and, maybe he was just drinking some shitty vodka, I don't know. But Obama's sandal lickers in Silicon Valley that I've been bemoaning, dumping on, which obviously is deserved. They sicken me to the core. But Obama's sandal lickers in Silicon Valley, I've definitely turned Facebook and Twitter into the PC police. Some legacy, Big O. Free at last, my ass. Hey now. A lot of people don't know this. I had a very good friend in college for 2 years that attended Punahou High School. It's a private high school in Hawaii. It's where Barack Obama went. I also dated a girl in LA who was my second summer win, Summer Lamb. I've talked about her before on the podcast. And she went there too. So I know something about Punahou. I also spent a spring break there, my last semester in college in LA. My parents had free airfare, and I was able to stay at my friend's parents' place, so definitely no brainer. This was my last semester in college. So anyway, so this is a joke about Obama, and this is a fact, okay? Because everyone always talks about, oh, well, what a great basketball player Obama is, such a baller, right? So this is a fact, okay? Obama was a bench warmer in a high school in Punahou. So if Obama is such a baller, why did he ride the bench at an all-Asian private school in Hawaii? Love that joke. Has anyone seen the pic with Obama and the Farrakhan posse yet? And just to be clear, they hid that photo deliberately when Obama was running. And again, Farrakhan, who's a Holocaust denier, who says, Jews are evil and devils and, try to control the black man with weed, all this stuff, okay? And who encourages violence against cops. He's still on Facebook, right? So, I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but there's a picture with Obama and Farrakhan's posse. It looks like the one from like Lambda 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 in Revenge of the Nerds, but much more Muslim Brotherhood happy. So this is a conversation with my 4-year-old son last weekend. He says, "Daddy, I got a tummy ache." And I said, "Learning CNN did a report on the Korean vet ceremony, so sons and daughters can visit their dismembered hero dads in their own hometown. Makes me sick to my stomach too, kiddo." Had a really wonderful time today with my dad. We made an agreement. He goes, "Son, call me once a week moving forward. Tell me what's going on. I want to hear about the kids. I want to hear about, your, career advancements, because we've made a decision to move closer to my in-laws. I live in Delaware. I do love Philly. Delaware first colony, which I think is pretty cool. Love the history there. I've written my earlier spec scripts in Philly. Did a Family Guy there that I wrote, and of course an episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So I love Philly. When I met my wife, I was doing ad sales for City Search, and Philly was my territory, so that was cool. Being able to expense my Amtrak rides from Manhattan to Philly, and get my ride on the train and sell there. So that was nice. But my parents have been in town this summer, spending more time than usual, and I'm off the Adderall, which is great, off the speed, and I've been able to reconnect with my dad, and that's been very special. Adderall really is an evil drug. I could be disgusted at myself for being a mental addict and being on it as long as I have. I mean, we're talking like 7 years, folks. And it truly is speed, because those 7 years went by like that. So I empathize, with the 50s housewives, because you do develop this heightened isolation, and with speed, you're able to. It perpetuates the idea of you being feeling busier than you actually are. But in my case, I was a joke writing machine, but in the end, that's, I don't like the idea. I don't want to like raise my children and make them think, well, God made you this way, but you're incapable of creating so and so art without this drug or this performance enhancer. So it's a really awful, disempowering message to send. So, and I just read this great book, and I want to be a living example of someone that doesn't need that. When I became a recommended writer for my theater rock, did not need it. It messes up my flow. I talk fast enough as is, and I love my wife too much to fuck up my marriage over fucking speed, which is complete stupidity. And as you can tell based on my high octane personality, energy, it's obviously not needed. And I still I've been dry. I haven't been drinking for, this could be my third weekend in a row. I had a minor slip where my wife had left some wine, and it was some really shitty Malbec. I had like a glass. I regretted it, but I was on Adderall because I was still doing my 1 pill a week. But now I'm officially done. Thank God. I made that promise to my dad. I really plan on sticking to it now. So that's wonderful. But Adderall is an evil drug. The fact that people prescribe that to kids is ridiculous. And I do plan on raising a drug-free children. I read this statistic in this book on how to raise a drug-free child. They say if none of your kids touch anything, Adderall, weed, cocaine, alcohol, by the time they graduate high school, there's like a 90% chance that they'll never develop a dependency on it, which I think is beautiful. So, the more I get in shape, the sooner I become a dunking machine, the more inspiration I can provide my children. I can't wait to do that for them. So I'm really excited with their development. So we went to the driving range today with my dad. I played some ball, and I was crushing them. Never crushed them more in my entire life. I like to think that's a fortuitous sign. It's definitely a sign that I'm more relaxed and not a tense speed monkey freak on the Adderall. So that was nice. And I was able to bang out at least 75% of my jump shots today with my dad. And that was really nice too. Had a nice walk with my mom too along the Bronx River. So I love both of you, and really glad that you guys have made the extra effort this summer to reconnect, because I know I've put up barriers, and I know my temper has been explosive, and that Adderall did not help, but I'm in a much more positive, empowered, peaceful place now, and you guys re-enter my life. It's definitely playing a growing factor in that. So I love you forever, and more importantly, it brings me extra nakas, as they say in Yiddish, to see how much joy my three children are giving you these days. Because kids get more exciting as they get older, and I haven't seen them all the time in Arizona, and that makes me really happy. Because I stem from you, and they stem from me, and it's just a beautiful amalgam of adorable, sweet gorgeousness. And I have you guys to thank for starting it all, as well as my in-laws. But I love you, and I have an affection for them for raising a beautiful daughter. Let's leave it at that, folks. Don't want to get too fucking mushy on the podcast. So I'm out my father and we go to this Italian restaurant. So this is us at the restaurant. It's my dad. He orders. He says to the waitress, 1 coffee with cream and sugar. And the waitress, all smug, says, "We have whole milk." And my response is, "You're too full of yourself." But if excessive snidiness makes you feel complete, and then prior to that, I'm not drinking beer, so I asked for a cream soda, asked for a straw. And she was smug again. She's the waitress. She says, "We don't have straws because of the environmental impact." And my reply is, "And your bubbly personality is supposed to make up for it?" Cavalier Smug has done wonders for the atmosphere already, obviously. This is the Do It All Daddier podcast, dad-friendly entertainment for you and me. Controlling our kids through comedy can make our kids great again. I'm happy, Eric and Rosa, these are my in-laws, for this Baba Camp getaway. It's been wonderful to exercise my manly independence and really feel like a true king in my castle, and to get an extra podcast done for this week, which I wasn't planning on doing, and to get some nice writing, thinking, reading time on the train. And not that I need a break from my children, but it's been nice. I'm not going to complain about it, and I'm glad that you're able to enjoy them. And I think it's really cool to get them slip and slide. I always loved those commercials as a kid. So those images of my children doing the slip and slide is beautiful. And without you guys looking after my kids, I never would have been inspired to write the poem that I shared with you guys earlier, which lights up my heart in my child's lifeless room. Because now my children really do give this house the most special, heartwarming life and pure unbridled joy that any man could ever ask for. They make it truly a home. On top of you, babe. But the children fill it out and make it feel complete. It's Michael Kornbluth. the host for the Do It All Dad Year podcast, dad-friendly entertainment for you and me, and I'll talk to you guys soon.